What if I told you that a single conversation with a 92-year-old grandmother could completely transform your life forever? That one story she shared could turn your deepest pain into your greatest strength, your worst failures into stepping stones to success, and your darkest moments into the foundation of unshakable happiness? This isn't just another feel-good story. This is the true account of how one young woman discovered the most powerful secret to living a life of purpose, kindness, and genuine joy, a secret that has been passed down through generations, hidden in the wisdom of those who've weathered life's greatest storms. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about success, happiness, and what it really means to live a meaningful life. The transformation that happened that day didn't just change one life, it created a ripple effect that touched hundreds of others. Before we dive into this life-changing story, I want to ask you something. If you're here because you're searching for hope, for answers, or for a sign that life can get better, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button right now, because stories like this one can literally change the trajectory of your life. We share these powerful, transformational stories every week, and I don't want you to miss a single one that could be exactly what you need to hear. Now, let me take you back to that life-changing day. Emma sat in her car outside the office building for the third time that week, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had turned white. At 28, she felt like she was drowning in a life that looked perfect from the outside, but felt completely hollow on the inside. She had the job everyone envied, marketing director at a prestigious firm. She had the apartment in the trendy part of the city, the designer clothes, the social media presence that made others think she had it all figured out. But behind the carefully curated photos and professional success, Emma was falling apart. Every morning felt like pushing a boulder uphill. She woke up with a knot in her stomach, dreading another day of pretending to be someone she wasn't. The work that once excited her now felt meaningless. The relationships in her life felt superficial. Even her own reflection in the mirror seemed like a stranger, someone who had lost touch with who she really was and what truly mattered. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. Emma had just finished a presentation that everyone called brilliant. But as the applause died down and her colleagues returned to their desks, she felt emptier than ever. She excused herself, walked to the bathroom, and for the first time in years, she broke down completely. The tears came in waves, all the suppressed frustration, loneliness, and confusion she'd been carrying. She wasn't just crying about work. She was grieving the person she used to be, the dreams she'd abandoned, and the connections she'd lost along the way. That evening, instead of going home to her empty apartment, Emma found herself driving to the small town where she grew up. She hadn't visited in months, always too busy with work, too caught up in her important city life. But something deep inside was pulling her back to her roots, to the one person who had always seen through her facades and loved her unconditionally. Grandmother's wisdom. Emma's grandmother, Rosa, lived in a modest cottage at the end of Maple Street. At 92, she had weathered the Great Depression, World War II, the loss of her husband, and countless other challenges that would have broken a lesser spirit. Yet when Emma knocked on her door that evening, Rosa opened it with the same warm smile that had greeted Emma throughout her childhood. "My dear," Rosa said, using the Spanish endearment she'd always called Emma, "I was just thinking about you. Come sit with me." Rosa's living room was simple but filled with love, family photos covering every surface, a well-worn Bible on the coffee table, and the scent of cinnamon and vanilla that Emma remembered from countless childhood visits. Rosa poured 2 cups of her famous chamomile tea and settled into her favorite rocking chair. "You look tired, my dear," Rosa observed with the gentle directness that only grandmothers possess. Not just body tired, soul tired. Emma tried to maintain her usual composure, to give the standard response about being fine, just busy with work. But under her grandmother's knowing gaze, the walls she'd built around her heart began to crumble. "I don't know who I am anymore, Grandma," Emma whispered, using the childhood name she hadn't spoken in years. "I have everything I thought I wanted, but I feel so empty. I'm successful, but I'm not happy. I'm surrounded by people, but I feel so alone. I wake up every day, wondering what the point of it all is." Rosa nodded slowly, her weathered hands folding over Emma's. "Ah, my dear, you're not the first person to lose yourself in the pursuit of what the world tells you should want. I see it in your eyes, the same look I once saw in a mirror many years ago." Emma looked up, surprised. Her grandmother had always seemed so sure of herself, so content with life. "You? But Grandma, you're the strongest person I know. You've always been so happy, so at peace." Rosa chuckled softly, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Oh, my dear girl, strength isn't about never falling down. It's about what you do when you hit the ground. And happiness? That's not something that just happens to you. It's something you choose every single day, even when choosing it feels impossible." Emma leaned forward, hungry for understanding. "How do you choose happiness when everything feels meaningless? How do you find peace when you don't even know who you are anymore?" Rosa's eyes took on a distant look, as if she were traveling back through decades of memories. "Let me tell you a story, my dear. It's about the day everything changed for me. And maybe it will help change everything for you too. Many years ago," Rosa began, her voice taking on the rhythmic quality of a born storyteller, "when I was about your age, I thought I had my life figured out too. But just like you, I discovered that having a plan and having a purpose are two very different things." Emma settled deeper into the couch cushions, feeling for the first time in months like she could truly relax and listen. "This story takes place in a magnificent forest, far from here, where all the animals lived in harmony. In this forest lived a young eagle named Hope. She was beautiful, with golden feathers that caught the sunlight and wings that seemed made for soaring among the clouds." Rosa's voice grew warmer as she continued. "But despite having everything an eagle could want, a loving family, a safe nest high in the tallest pine tree, and all the freedom in the world, Hope was miserable." Emma felt a chill of recognition. What was wrong with her? The same thing that's wrong with so many of us, my dear. She had forgotten how to see the beauty in her own life. Every day, Hope would perch on her branch and watch the other animals, convinced that everyone else had it better than she did. Rosa stood up and walked to the window, gazing out at the twilight sky. She would watch the deer gracefully leaping through the meadows and think, "How elegant they are, how admired. Why can't I be graceful on the ground like them?" She would see the wolves working together as a pack and think, "They have such strong bonds, such purpose. Why do I feel so alone, even when I'm with my family?" "She sounds lonely," Emma murmured. "Desperately lonely," Rosa agreed. But the worst part was that Hope had stopped using the very gift that made her special. Day after day, she would sit on that branch, envying others for qualities she imagined they had, while her own magnificent wings grew weak from disuse. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. The parallel to her own life was unmistakable. One morning, Hope's mother approached her. "My dear," she said. "Yes, even eagle mothers call their daughters my dear." Rosa smiled. "You haven't flown in weeks. The sky is calling to you. Why do you resist?" But Hope turned away bitterly. "What's the point of flying when I have nowhere important to go? What's the point of soaring when I don't know why I was given wings in the first place?" Rosa returned to her chair, her expression growing more serious. That very afternoon, the forest faced its greatest crisis in generations. A terrible fire had started on the far side of the woods, and it was spreading fast toward the heart of the forest, where all the animals made their homes. Emma leaned forward. What happened? Panic spread faster than the flames themselves. The deer, despite their grace, couldn't leap high enough to see over the smoke and find safe passage. The wolves, for all their teamwork, couldn't coordinate an evacuation without knowing which paths were clear and which led to danger. Every animal in the forest had valuable skills, but none of them could see the bigger picture. Literally, Rosa paused for effect. All except one. Hope, Emma breathed. That's right. As the smoke grew thicker and the animals' fear grew stronger, Hope finally understood something that changed everything. Her gift, her ability to soar above the chaos and see what others couldn't see, wasn't just about her. It was about how she could serve others. Emma felt something stirring in her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in months. But there was a problem, Rosa continued. Hope's wings had grown weak from months of disuse. She had spent so much time focused on what she lacked that she had neglected to maintain what she had been blessed with. As the fire grew closer and the animals grew more desperate, Hope faced the most important choice of her life, Rosa continued. She could stay on her safe branch, paralyzed by fear and self-doubt, telling herself that she wasn't strong enough or important enough to make a difference. Or she could choose to trust in her gifts, even if they felt rusty and uncertain. Emma was hanging on every word. What did she choose? She chose courage over comfort, my dear. With trembling wings and a racing heart, Hope spread her wings for the first time in months. The first few flaps were painful. Her muscles ached, and she nearly fell twice. But with each beat of her wings, she remembered what she was capable of. Rosa's voice grew stronger, more animated. As she rose above the treetops, something magical happened. The higher she soared, the clearer everything became. She could see the entire forest spread out below her. The safe paths, the dangerous areas, the best routes to the river where the animals would be protected from the flames. But seeing wasn't enough. Hope had to find the courage to use her voice, to overcome her fear of being noticed, of taking up space, of potentially being wrong. She had to risk everything to save everyone. Emma wiped away a tear. Did she do it? She began to call out directions to the animals below. Her voice, which she had kept silent for so long, rang out clear and strong across the forest. Dear family, head north toward the old oak. The path is clear. Wolves, take your pack east to the meadow. Avoid the southern trail. It's blocked by fallen trees. Rosa stood up again, her arms spread wide as if she were flying herself. And something beautiful happened, my dear. As Hope used her gifts to serve others, she began to remember who she really was. She wasn't just an eagle. She was a guardian, a guide, a beacon of hope when others couldn't see through the darkness. The animals listened to her. Not only did they listen, but they began to work together in ways they never had before. The deer used their speed to relay messages to animals in distant parts of the forest. The wolves organized rescue teams for the smaller creatures who couldn't move as quickly. Each animal began to use their unique gifts not for their own glory, but to serve the greater good. Rosa sat back down, her eyes shining with the power of the story. By nightfall, every single animal in the forest had been led to safety. The fire eventually burned itself out, and while some trees were lost, not one life was taken. Emma felt goosebumps rise on her arms. That's incredible. But the most incredible part, my dear, was what happened to Hope herself. That night, as she perched by the river with all the other animals safe around her, she realized that her purpose had been there all along. She had just been too focused on herself to see it. The next morning, Rosa continued. As the forest animals began the work of rebuilding and healing, something had fundamentally changed in Hope. But it wasn't just about finding her purpose. It was about understanding the difference between happiness that comes from getting what you want and joy that comes from becoming who you're meant to be. Emma nodded, feeling the distinction resonate deep in her soul. A wise old owl approached Hope that morning. His name was Sabio, and he had been watching everything unfold. "Young eagle," he said, "yesterday you discovered something that many spend their whole lives searching for." "What's that?" Hope asked. "You discovered that your gifts were never meant to make you happy. They were meant to make you useful. And when you become truly useful, happiness follows naturally, like a shadow follows the sun." Rosa leaned forward, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. But then Sabio shared the deepest wisdom of all. He told Hope about the 3 truths that every soul must learn. Emma felt her heart rate quicken. What were they? First, that every living being is born with unique gifts, not for their own sake, but to serve something greater than themselves. Second, that true fulfillment comes not from collecting achievements or possessions, but from giving away what you've been given. And third, that kindness, genuine, selfless kindness, is the most powerful force in the universe. Emma felt something shift inside her, like a door opening in a room she didn't know existed. Sabio explained to Hope that the forest fire wasn't a tragedy that interrupted her life. It was the very thing that revealed her life's purpose. Sometimes, my dear, our greatest challenges are actually invitations to become who we're meant to be. Rosa stood up and walked over to an old photo on the mantel. Picture of her as a young woman, standing with a group of children in what looked like a school setting. You see, my dear, I was Hope in that story. Not literally, of course, but in every way that mattered. When I was your age, I was a teacher, but I had lost my passion for it. I felt like I was just going through the motions, collecting a paycheck, making no real difference. Emma's eyes widened. What was your forest fire? Rosa smiled sadly. It was a little boy named Miguel. He was in my 3rd grade class, and he was struggling, not just with reading and math, but with life. His family had very little money. His father had left, and his mother worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. Miguel was angry, defensive, and falling further behind every day. Most days, I found him frustrating. I was so focused on my own problems, my own dissatisfaction with my career, that I couldn't see past his behavior to the pain underneath. I was ready to give up on him, to label him as a problem child, and move on. Emma felt her throat tighten. What changed? One day, Miguel didn't come to school. When I called his home, I learned that he had been hospitalized, malnutrition and exhaustion. His mother had been working so much that she hadn't realized how little he'd been eating. That night, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw clearly for the first time in years. Rosa's voice grew thick with emotion. I realized that I had been so busy feeling sorry for myself, so focused on what I thought I deserved from life, that I had nearly missed the very reason I had become a teacher in the first place, to make a difference in children's lives. That night, Rosa continued, I made a decision that changed everything. Instead of waiting for my job to fulfill me, I would pour myself into fulfilling my purpose through my job. Instead of asking what my students could do for my sense of accomplishment, I would focus entirely on what I could do for them. Emma was captivated. What did you do? I started with Miguel. When he returned to school, I made sure he had breakfast every morning. I brought extra food from home and made it seem like it was just left over from my own meal, so he wouldn't feel embarrassed. I stayed after school to help him with his reading, not because I had to, but because I wanted to see him succeed. Rose's face lit up with the memory. But more importantly, I started really seeing him not as a problem to be solved, but as a precious child who needed someone to believe in him. I learned about his interests, his dreams, his fears. I discovered that he was incredibly creative and had a beautiful imagination that just needed encouragement to flourish. Did it make a difference? Oh, my dear, it made all the difference in the world, but not just for Miguel, for me too. As I focused on serving him and my other students, something miraculous happened. The work that had felt meaningless became the most important thing I could imagine doing. The days that had dragged by started flying by. I would wake up excited about what we might discover together in class that day. Rosa walked back to her chair, her steps lighter somehow. But the real magic happened when I realized that this wasn't just about Miguel, or even about teaching. It was about a fundamental truth of human existence. We are designed to find our greatest joy in serving others with our gifts. Emma felt tears streaming down her cheeks. Did Miguel? Did he turn out okay? Rosa's smile could have lit up the entire room. Miguel graduated as valedictorian of his high school class. He became a doctor, specializing in pediatric care for underprivileged children. But more than that, he learned the same lesson I did, that our gifts are meant to be given away. 2 years ago, he came to visit me. He brought his own children, 2 beautiful daughters. And he told me something I'll never forget. He said, Mrs. Rosa, you didn't just teach me how to read. You taught me that someone cared about whether I learned to read. And that made all the difference. Emma was sobbing now, not from sadness, but from a deep recognition of truth. I feel so selfish, Grandma. I've been so focused on my own happiness, my own success, my own problems. Rosa gently took Emma's hands. My dear, there's nothing selfish about wanting to be happy. The mistake isn't in wanting happiness. It's in where we look for it. We think it comes from getting what we want, but it actually comes from becoming who we're meant to be. And we become who we're meant to be by using our gifts to serve others with kindness and love. But Grandma, Emma said through her tears, how do I know what my gifts are? How do I know how to use them? I feel so lost. Rosa squeezed her hands gently. Let me tell you what Sabio the Owl told Hope, because it's just as true for you as it was for her. Single quotes. Emma wiped her eyes and leaned forward. First, your gifts are often hidden in what you do naturally, what comes easily to you, but might seem difficult to others. What do people often ask you for help with? What do you find yourself doing, even when you don't have to? Emma thought for a moment. People always come to me when they need someone to listen. And I've always been good at helping people see solutions to their problems, at organizing things, at bringing people together. There, Rosa smiled. Those aren't accidents, my dear. Those are clues to your purpose. Second, your greatest gifts often develop through your greatest challenges. What you've overcome can become what you help others overcome. I don't understand. Think about it. You've been struggling with feeling lost, with finding meaning in your success, with connecting authentically with others, despite being surrounded by people. Those struggles have given you empathy and understanding that you can now use to help others who are facing the same challenges. Emma felt a spark of excitement, so my pain. It could actually be useful? Not just useful, my dear, essential. The people who need your help the most are the people who are struggling with exactly what you've struggled with. Your wounded places, when they heal, become your places of greatest strength and service. Rosa stood up and walked to her bookshelf, pulling down a worn journal. Third, start where you are, with what you have, for the people right in front of you. You don't need to quit your job or move across the world or start a charity to begin living your purpose. She opened the journal and showed Emma pages filled with names, dates, and small notes. This is my kindness journal. Every day, I write down one small way I serve someone else. A listening ear for Mrs. Patterson next door, a meal for the family whose father is in the hospital, a letter to my great-nephew who's struggling in college. Emma looked at the pages in wonder. You've been keeping track of acts of kindness? Not to keep score, my dear, but to remind myself that purpose isn't found in grand gestures. It's found in daily choices to use whatever gifts you have to make life a little better for others. Rosa turned to a recent page. See? Last Tuesday, helped Emma's coworker's mother understand her new medication over the phone. Wednesday, donated books to the library reading program. Thursday, listened to Mr. Chon talk about missing his late wife. Emma realized she was one of the entries. You helped my coworker's mother? Maria called me because she knew I used to be a teacher and was good at explaining things simply. Her mother was confused about her new heart medication. We talked for an hour, and now she feels confident managing her health. Emma shook her head in amazement. I had no idea you were still helping so many people. That's the beautiful thing about kindness. My dear, it ripples out in ways we never see. But more importantly for your question, I didn't wait until I retired to start living my purpose. I found ways to serve others within my regular life, with my regular gifts, right where I was. Rosa closed the journal and sat back down across from Emma. Now comes the hard part. My dear, I can tell you all the wisdom in the world, but knowledge without action is just entertainment. The question is, what are you going to do with what you now know? Emma felt a familiar fear rise in her chest. I want to change, Grandma. I really do. But I'm scared. What if I try to help people and I mess up? What if I'm not as gifted as I think I am? What if I give up my comfortable life and end up worse off than before? Rosa nodded knowingly. Do you know what Hope said to Sabio when he challenged her to commit to living differently? Emma shook her head. She said, "But what if I fail? What if I try to help other animals and lead them astray? What if my wings aren't strong enough for the long journey of service?" And what did Sabio say? Rosa's voice took on the gentle authority of the wise owl. He said, "My dear eagle, you're asking the wrong questions. The question isn't whether you're strong enough. The question is whether you're willing to grow stronger. The question isn't whether you'll fail. The question is whether you'll let fear of failure keep you from trying. The question isn't whether you're worthy of your gifts. The question is whether your gifts are worthy of being shared." Emma felt something shift inside her, like a weight being lifted from her shoulders. That's exactly what I needed to hear. But Sabio wasn't done, Rosa continued. He told Hope something that I want you to remember for the rest of your life. The path of service isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming authentic. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being brave enough to ask the right questions. And it's not about never falling down. It's about always getting back up, because others are counting on you to keep flying. Rosa reached over and took Emma's hands again. "My dear, I see in you the same gifts I saw in myself all those years ago, the same gifts that Hope had. You have the ability to see situations clearly, to bring people together, to help others find solutions to their problems. But more than that, you have a heart that cares deeply. That's why you're hurting so much right now." Emma felt tears starting again. "So what do I do? Where do I start?" Rosa smiled. "Start tomorrow morning with 2 simple commitments. First, commit to performing 1 act of genuine kindness every day, not for recognition, not for reward, but simply because it's who you're choosing to become. Second, commit to using your gifts to serve at least 1 person every day, even if it's just listening to a coworker who needs to be heard. That's it. That's everything, my dear. Purpose isn't found in a single moment of revelation. It's built through thousands of small choices to serve others with love. Start small, be consistent, and watch how your life transforms." Rosa stood up and walked to the window again. "But I'll give you one warning that Sabio gave to Hope. Once you start living this way, you can never go back to living just for yourself. Once you taste the joy that comes from serving others with your gifts, everything else will seem empty by comparison." Emma stood up too, feeling more energized than she had in months. "I don't want to go back, Grandma. I'm tired of living for myself. It's not working." 6 months later, Emma sat in that same living room with her grandmother, but everything had changed. She was still working at the same company, still living in the same apartment, but her life had been transformed from the inside out. "Tell me about your week, my dear," Rosa said as she poured their traditional chamomile tea. Emma's face lit up. "Oh, Grandma, I have so much to tell you. Remember how I was struggling with that project at work? Well, instead of just complaining about it, I started really listening to what my team members needed. It turns out that Sarah, one of our graphic designers, has been dealing with her mother's dementia diagnosis and couldn't focus. And James, our writer, has been struggling financially and was too proud to ask for help." Rosa nodded encouragingly. "What did you do?" "I organized a meal train for Sarah's family and connected James with a side freelance opportunity I heard about. But more than that, I started really seeing my role differently. Instead of just trying to get the work done, I started asking myself how I could make everyone's job easier and more meaningful." Emma's excitement was contagious. "And you know what happened? The project didn't just get completed. It became the best work our team has ever produced. But more importantly, our whole office culture started changing. People began looking out for each other, collaborating instead of competing." Rosa smiled. "And how do you feel?" "I wake up excited about going to work. Not because the work itself has changed that much, but because I know I'm going to spend my day looking for ways to serve others with my gifts. I'm still the same Emma with the same skills, but now those skills have a purpose beyond just making money or getting ahead." Emma set down her teacup and reached into her purse, pulling out a small journal similar to Rosa's. "And look, I started my own kindness journal. Every day, I write down how I used my gifts to serve someone else. She opened to a recent page. Monday, helped a lost tourist find their hotel and recommended a great local restaurant. Tuesday, spent my lunch break listening to a colleague who was having marriage problems. Wednesday, organized a surprise birthday celebration for our office security guard, who mentioned he'd never had a birthday party. Rosa laughed with delight. And how has this changed your life outside of work? Emma's expression grew even brighter. That's the most amazing part. I joined a volunteer program that helps young professionals who are struggling with career transitions. Basically, I'm helping other people who were in the same place I was 6 months ago. And Grandma, when I see the light come back into their eyes when they start to understand their purpose, it's like nothing I've ever experienced. Tell me more about that. There's this young man, David, who reminds me so much of myself. He's successful on paper, but completely lost inside. Last week, he told me that our conversations have helped him realize that his gift for numbers could be used to help nonprofit organizations manage their finances better. He's starting to volunteer with a local charity that helps homeless veterans. Emma paused, her eyes filling with happy tears. And you know what the best part is? I'm not doing this to make myself feel better anymore. I'm not serving others because I need to fix my own life. I'm doing it because this is who I'm meant to be. This is what brings me alive. Rosa reached over and hugged her granddaughter tightly. My dear, you have become the person you were always meant to be. You've learned the secret that took me years to discover. But there's something else, Grandma, Emma continued, her voice growing more thoughtful. I'm starting to see how this ripples out in ways I never expected. David, the young man I've been mentoring, he's now helping other young professionals too. And Sarah from work, she started a support group for adult children caring for parents with dementia. Rosa's eyes sparkled with pride and wisdom. That's the miracle of kindness, my dear. When you serve others with love, you're not just changing their lives. You're teaching them how to change other lives too. Emma nodded eagerly. And remember James, the writer who was struggling financially. The freelance work I connected him with led to a permanent position at a nonprofit that writes grants for organizations serving underprivileged children. Now he's using his writing skills to secure funding for programs that feed hungry kids. Every act of service creates more servants, Rosa observed. Every person who experiences genuine kindness becomes more likely to show kindness to others. Emma pulled out her phone and showed Rosa a photo. Look at this. It's from the volunteer program I joined. This is our group, 12 people who are now mentoring others through career transitions. But here's the thing. Every single one of us was brought into the program because someone else served us first. Rosa studied the photo, seeing the joy and purpose radiating from each face. How many people have been touched by this program now? Over 100 in just 6 months. And each of those people is going on to serve others in their own unique ways. It's like a kindness explosion that keeps expanding. Emma sat back, shaking her head in wonder. I used to think that individual actions didn't matter much, that one person couldn't make a significant difference. But now I see that every single choice to serve others with kindness creates a chain reaction that touches lives I'll never even know about. Rosa stood up and walked to her bookshelf again, this time pulling down a worn photo album. Let me show you something, my dear. This is from 40 years of teaching, 40 years of choosing to serve others with my gifts. She opened the album to reveal hundreds of photos. Students at graduations, wedding invitations, birth announcements, letters from former students. Miguel wasn't the only life that changed. When you commit to serving others with love, you become part of something much bigger than yourself. Emma looked through the pages in amazement. All of these people learned the same lesson you learned, that their gifts were meant to be shared, that their purpose was found in serving others. And look at what they've gone on to do. Rosa pointed to various photos and letters. Teachers, doctors, social workers, business owners who treat their employees with kindness. Parents who are raising children with the same values. Emma felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of it all. One person really can change the world, Not by trying to change the world, my dear, but by changing one heart at a time, starting with your own. When you commit to living with kindness and purpose, you become a stone thrown into the lake of humanity. The ripples spread far beyond what you can see. Rosa closed the photo album and returned to her chair. But now I want to share with you the deepest truth of all, the one that Sabio shared with Hope at the very end of their conversation. Emma leaned forward, sensing that something profound was coming. Sabio told Hope that there are two types of people in the world: those who believe that life is something that happens to them, and those who believe that life is something they can happen to. The first group waits for happiness to find them. The second group goes out and creates happiness by serving others. Emma nodded. I definitely used to be in the first group. Most of us start there, my dear. But here's what Sabio said that changed everything for Hope. The moment you stop asking what life can give you and start asking what you can give to life, that's the moment everything changes. That's the day everything changes. Rosa's voice grew softer, more intimate. You see, my dear, the secret isn't just about finding your purpose or using your gifts or even serving others. The secret is about understanding that you are created for connection, for community, for love. We are not meant to live for ourselves alone. We are meant to live for each other. Emma felt a deep sense of peace settling over her. It's about love. Everything is about love, my dear. The gifts you've been given are expressions of love. The service you provide to others is love in action. The joy you feel when you serve, that's love flowing back to you. When you understand this, you understand why the eagle could only find happiness when she stopped flying for herself and started flying for others. Emma wiped away a tear. So the story was never really about the eagle at all. The story was about remembering who we really are, Rosa said gently. We are not isolated individuals competing for happiness. We are connected souls designed to lift each other up, to serve each other with our unique gifts, to create a world where everyone can flourish. Rosa reached over and took Emma's hands one more time. And that, my dear, is why this day, the day you chose to stop living for yourself and start living for others, that's the day everything changed. Not just for you, but for everyone whose life you'll touch from now on. Emma stood up, feeling a sense of purpose and clarity she had never experienced before. Grandma, I want to make you a promise. Rosa smiled, waiting. I promise that I will never forget what you've taught me. I promise that I will spend the rest of my life using my gifts to serve others with love and kindness. And I promise that I will share this wisdom with everyone who needs to hear it, just like you shared it with me. Rosa's eyes filled with tears of joy. That's all any grandmother could ever want to hear from her granddaughter. Emma hugged Rosa tightly. Thank you for saving my life. No, my dear, Rosa whispered. Thank you for giving your life meaning. There's no greater joy for an old woman than watching her granddaughter become who she was meant to be. As Emma drove home that night, she felt like she was seeing the world with new eyes. The streets she had driven down thousands of times looked different. The people she passed weren't just strangers. They were opportunities for connection, for service, for love. She thought about the eagle in her grandmother's story, and she understood now why Hope had been so miserable sitting on that branch. She had been denying her very nature, which was to soar, to serve, to see what others couldn't see, and use that vision to help them. Emma made a mental note to herself. Tomorrow, she would start each day by asking not, what can I get today? But what can I give today? She would look for opportunities to use her gifts, her ability to listen, to organize, to bring people together, to solve problems, not for her own advancement, but for the benefit of others. But more than that, she would remember that every person she encountered was fighting their own battles, carrying their own burdens, searching for their own purpose. And maybe, just maybe, she could be the person who helped them find it. Exactly 1 year after that life-changing conversation with her grandmother, Emma found herself standing in front of a room full of young professionals. She had started a monthly workshop called Finding Purpose Through Service, and it had grown from a small gathering in a coffee shop to a program that was being replicated in cities across the country. How many of you, Emma asked the group, woke up this morning feeling like something was missing from your life, even though you have most of what you thought you wanted? Nearly every hand in the room went up. Emma smiled, remembering herself in that exact same place just a year ago. I want to tell you a story that changed everything for me. It's about a young eagle who had everything she could want, but couldn't find happiness, and about the day she discovered that her wings weren't meant for flying alone. As she began to share Rose's story, Emma could see the recognition in the faces before her, people who were successful but not satisfied, accomplished but not fulfilled, connected but still lonely. After the workshop, a young man approached her. His name was Alex, and he was a software engineer who felt like his work had no meaning beyond making his company more profitable. "Ma," he said, "I think I know what my gifts are, but I don't know how to use them to help others. I'm good at creating technology solutions, but I work for a company that just makes rich people richer. How do I bridge that gap?" Emma felt a familiar stirring in her heart, the joy that came from being able to help someone discover their path to purpose. "Alex, what if I told you that there are hundreds of nonprofit organizations that desperately need technology solutions but can't afford to hire developers? What if your gift for creating solutions could be used to help organizations that feed the hungry, house the homeless, or educate underserved children?" Alex's eyes lit up. I never thought about that. I could volunteer my skills?" "You could do more than that," Emma said. "You could start a movement. You could connect other tech professionals with organizations that need their help. You could use your gifts to enable other people to use their gifts more effectively." 3 months later, Alex had launched Tech for Good, a platform that connected skilled technology professionals with nonprofit organizations that needed their expertise. Within 6 months, the platform had facilitated over 500 volunteer connections and had helped nonprofits across the country improve their operations, reach more people, and have greater impact. Emma smiled as she read Alex's latest update. The ripple effect continued to expand. On a sunny Saturday morning, Emma sat in her grandmother's living room for what she didn't know would be their last conversation. Rosa, now 93, was frailer than before, but her spirit was as bright as ever. "Tell me about your week, my dear," Rosa said, settling into her familiar rocking chair. Emma pulled out her kindness journal, which had grown much thicker over the past year. "Oh, Grandma, so much has happened. The workshop program is now in 12 cities. Alex's tech platform has helped over 50 nonprofits. And remember David, the young man who was helping homeless veterans with their finances?" Rosa nodded. "He's now running a nonprofit that has helped over 200 veterans get back on their feet financially. But the best part is watching how each person who finds their purpose goes on to help others find theirs too." Emma flipped through the pages of her journal. "Look at this. I've documented over 1,000 individual acts of kindness this year, and each one led to connections, opportunities, and transformations that I could never have planned or predicted." Rosa smiled with deep satisfaction. "You have become a river of kindness, my dear. And rivers don't just flow. They nourish everything they touch, creating life wherever they go." Emma looked up from her journal. "Grandma, I need to tell you something. 2 months ago, my company offered me a promotion to regional director. It would have meant more money, more status, more of everything I used to think I wanted." Rosa raised an eyebrow. "And I turned it down. Instead, I asked if I could transition to a part-time role so I could spend more time developing the workshop program and mentoring others. They said yes, and you know what? I've never been happier." Emma leaned forward. "But here's what I really want to tell you. I've decided to start a foundation. I want to formalize what I've been doing, create a sustainable way to help people discover their gifts and use them to serve others. I'm going to call it the Rosa Foundation." Rosa's hand flew to her heart. "My dear, you saved my life, Grandma. You taught me that the day everything changes is the day you stop living for yourself and start living for others." I want to spend the rest of my life making sure other people have the chance to learn that lesson too. Rosa reached over and took Emma's hands, her eyes shining with tears. There is no greater honor than having your life's wisdom live on in someone you love. You have given my years of teaching meaning I could never have imagined. Emma felt tears streaming down her face. Everything good in my life started with that story about the eagle. Everything? No, my dear, Rosa said gently. Everything good in your life started with your choice to listen to that story, to believe it, and to act on it. The story was just the beginning. You are the one who chose to live it. 2 years after Rosa passed away peacefully in her sleep, Emma stood before the largest audience she had ever addressed. The Rosa Foundation had grown beyond anything she could have imagined. With chapters in 30 cities and partnerships with major corporations to help their employees find purpose in their work. Today, Emma began, I want to tell you about the day everything changed for me. It started with a conversation with my 92-year-old grandmother, who taught me that the secret to happiness isn't found in getting what we want. It's found in giving what we have. The audience of 500 people leaned forward, ready to hear the story that had transformed so many lives. My grandmother told me about a young eagle named Hope, who had everything she could want, but couldn't find happiness. And through that story, I learned the most important lesson of my life. We are not meant to fly alone. As Emma shared Rosa's story, she could see the same recognition in the faces before her that she had seen in her own reflection that night 2 years ago. People who were successful but not satisfied, accomplished but not fulfilled, connected but still lonely. After her talk, Emma was approached by a young woman who looked exactly like Emma had 2 years earlier, professionally dressed, outwardly successful, but with eyes that held a deep sadness. Emma, the woman said, I'm Sarah. I'm 29. I have a great job at a consulting firm. I live in a beautiful apartment, and I should be happy. But I wake up every day feeling empty. I don't know what's wrong with me. Emma felt her heart fill with compassion and purpose. Sarah, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just ready to discover who you're meant to be. Can I tell you a story? As they sat together in the quiet corner of the conference center, Emma shared Rosa's wisdom once again, watching as understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes, just as it had in her own. 6 months later, Sarah had started a program that connected professional women with teenage girls in underprivileged communities, helping them develop confidence and career aspirations. The ripple effect continued. As Emma reflected on the incredible journey that had begun with a simple story from her grandmother, she realized something profound. The story of Hope the Eagle had been more than just a metaphor. It had been a blueprint for transformation that had now touched thousands of lives. Every person who heard the story and chose to act on it became like Hope, discovering that their gifts were meant for service, that their purpose was found in lifting others up, and that true happiness came not from soaring alone, but from helping others learn to fly. Emma opened her laptop and began typing what would become her first book, The Day Everything Changed: How One Story Can Transform Your Life and the Lives of Others. She wrote about Alex and his tech platform, about David and his work with veterans, about Sarah and her mentorship program. She wrote about the hundreds of other people who had discovered their purpose through service, and how each of their stories had created new stories of transformation. But most of all, she wrote about Rosa, the grandmother whose wisdom had started it all, whose commitment to using her gifts to serve others had created a legacy that would outlive her by generations. As Emma typed, she realized that she was now doing exactly what Rosa had done for her, sharing a story that had the power to change lives, passing on wisdom that could transform pain into purpose, gifts into service, and individuals into a community of love. The story of the eagle had taught her that we are all meant to soar, but not alone. We are meant to use our ability to see clearly, to fly high above the chaos, and to guide others to safety and purpose. We are meant to be beacons of hope in a world that often feels dark and confusing. And the day we choose to stop living for ourselves and start living for others, that's the day everything changes. Not just for us, but for everyone whose life we touch. As Emma finished writing her book, she thought about her grandmother's words. Every act of service creates more servants. Every person who experiences genuine kindness becomes more likely to show kindness to others. She realized that this story, Rose's story, her story, the story of everyone who had chosen purpose over pleasure, service over selfishness, was still being written. Every day, in small towns and big cities, in corporate offices and community centers, people were discovering that their gifts were meant to be shared, that their purpose was found in serving others. The day everything changed wasn't a single day at all. It was every day that someone chose love over fear, service over selfishness, purpose over profit. It was every day that someone realized their wings weren't meant for flying alone. And now, as you reach the end of this story, the question becomes, will this be the day everything changes for you? Will you choose to see your gifts, whatever they are, as tools for serving others? Will you commit to performing one act of genuine kindness every day? Will you begin to look at every person you meet as an opportunity for connection, for service, for love? The eagle is waiting to fly. The forest is counting on your unique perspective. The world needs what only you can give. If this story has touched your heart, if it's made you think differently about your purpose and your potential, then I have an important request. This channel is dedicated to sharing stories like this one, stories that have the power to transform lives, to inspire action, and to remind us of what really matters in this world. But here's the truth. These stories can only change lives if people hear them. Right now, less than 5% of the people watching this video are subscribed to our channel. That means 95% of you might miss the next story that could be exactly what you need to hear, exactly when you need to hear it. Your subscription doesn't just help this channel grow, it helps these life-changing stories reach more people who desperately need hope, purpose, and direction. It helps create a community of people who are committed to using their gifts to serve others, to choosing kindness in a world that often seems cruel, and to living lives of meaning and purpose. When you subscribe and turn on notifications, you're not just following a YouTube channel, you're joining a movement. You're becoming part of a community that believes in the power of stories to change hearts, in the importance of serving others, and in the truth that every single person has gifts that the world needs. So please, if this story has impacted you in any way, hit that subscribe button right now. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling us how you're going to use your gifts to serve others. Because your story, your journey from living for yourself to living for others, that story matters too. Together, we can create a ripple effect of kindness and purpose that reaches every corner of the world. Together, we can help others discover that their wings weren't meant for flying alone. The day everything changes starts with your choice. What will you choose? Subscribe now, and let's change the world together, one story at a time.